If you've been practicing lip trills, straw phonation vocal exercises, or even the puffy cheek exercise that I shared in the last video that I shared with you, and you're struggling to really put all of this into practice, right? It's all good if you've got 2-3 octaves of range in a lip trill, but if it doesn't translate into real singing, you're not really learning anything, right? You're probably starting to feel that these exercises might even be completely useless, right? If that's you, this video is for you. Now, there's something very important that you're supposed to be taking out of vocal exercises. I think where most people go wrong with vocal training, myself included, when I was taking weekly singing lessons for 8 years or whatever it was that I thought the more I did, the better I was going to get, or the longer I practiced an exercise, or the more lip trills I did, I'd build a muscle, and then one day I would just magically be able to sing whatever I wanted, right? And after that many years, it kind of gone past that amount of money and that amount of courses and lessons and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I started to doubt myself and start to really look for reasons why. Just like, oh, I can't do this because of this reason, or I'll never be able to do this because of this reason, right? I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that relate to that. But there's something very important, very simple, very practical that you're meant to be taking out of vocal exercises. And I'm going to use my version of the puffy cheek exercise that I just shared with you in the previous video. I'm going to use that as an example and show you how to actually put each of these concepts into practice with a real vocal line, with a real song, so that you can sing real shit, right? That's what it's all about. You want to sing real songs. Before we do that, hello, my name is Keegan. In over a decade of coaching singing professionally, teaching singing professionally, I've helped hundreds and hundreds of singers absolutely transform their voices. I've been sharing lots of my, results and reviews of my students in my recent videos, the albums they're making, becoming voice teachers, touring internationally, all the cool stuff that they're doing. I'm not going to do that in this video. We're just going to get straight into it so that you can sing better now. Yeah. All right. So the puffy cheek exercise. First up, let's make a really frustrated sound. I'm sure you're frustrated about singing. I'm sure you're frustrated about something in your life currently, right? This kind of sound, right? Now, if you're totally collapsing your posture and you're leaning forward, you're not really going to feel much or do this correctly, right? So it's a decent posture, right? I don't need to teach you how to have a decent posture, right? Just sit up straight or stand up straight, right? Keep that posture. Keep the posture, right? We're not collapsing. And we're not thinking of singing. We're not thinking of belting high stuff. We're not thinking of Lane Staley or Chris Cornell. I'm just frustrated. I'm just frustrated about YouTube, right? What you're going to feel is something in the belly. Most likely what you're going to feel is kind of an outwards feeling with the ribs. You don't need to make that happen. Again, just frustrated sound. You're going to feel like the mouth and the puffy cheeks are in the way of the air, and the air can't escape fast enough, and this kind of backs up into the diaphragm, right? Your lower belly will probably be in, but again, I'm not actively making this happen. I feel like that's a missing link for a lot of people. When someone says, well, look, when you support your voice, it's ribs out in the middle, it's your lower belly, you're pushed down, or it's a bathroom movement type thing, whatever it is. That's totally not what it is. But anyway, that's what people say. They're talking from their perspective as someone who's able to do it. They're not actively making that happen, I feel like, is the missing instruction there. That's what's happening when they're supporting correctly. So you're actively trying to do those things to make you support correctly, but it's really a flow-on effect. It requires you to sing the right vowel. It requires you to use the right pitching mechanism. It requires you to have the right frequencies, the right setup, all of this kind of stuff. And support, I find, is often the last link in the chain. And a lot of people look at that first. Most vocal courses are going to take you through breathing first, and that's totally fine. But it's really that support thing is really the last link in the chain, right? So if we take our frustrated, okay, my mouth's almost closed. I can't really let the air out. I kind of get this backed up feeling in the midsection, in the lower belly. We're just going to add a sound to it, right? So make the sound first. Doesn't matter what sound it is, right? Don't think about singing. We're not trying to belt the shit out of this, right? And as we go up, what we're going to do is we're going to lose the puffy cheeks. Instead of going and really backing this up, this kind of thing, right? And you can practice this, take your time doing this, and get used to all of these elements. Now, practicing this for 10,000 hours is not going to make you a good singer. I feel like I keep having to reiterate that point with people, especially in the comments, right? Oh, I've been practicing this. I use this as part of my warm-up. I use this to extend high range, that kind of stuff. That's not how singing works at all. What you need to do is apply each of the elements that this exercise forces you to use. This exercise is not building your support. It's not building your ping. It's not building your resonance. To sing this sound or to make this sound correctly, all of those things have to be correct. And you just have to identify them and apply them in your actual singing, and you're going to sing better. That's how this works. That's the point of a warm-up and a vocal routine, all those kind of things. It's not lifting weights and building muscle. You don't really build muscle when you sing. Stretch ligaments, all that stuff. Yep, absolutely. But you're not really building muscle over time to sing well. That's why guys like Paul Rodgers, who was all of about 15 or 16 years old on the first Free record, some of the greatest rock singing ever. He's called the voice of rock for a reason. 15 years old, 16 years old. He did not spend thousands and thousands of hours doing really hard vocal exercises to sing like that. He identified, probably from his favorite singers, he identified what they were doing and he applied it and he sang well. And that's all you need to do to sing better and get that next step of progress in your singing, right? So why does this work, right? This puffy cheek exercise. Ooh, you'll notice you can connect it with chest voice. Ooh. Ooh. Right? Why is this working? So, number one, the back pressure. Basically, the air can't escape quick enough. It's kind of like crimping a garden hose, right? And you get this pressure along the line, meaning the vocal folds aren't really under a state of duress when you're singing. They're in a pressurized state, but it's really from both directions, right? That pressure is backing up along the line. Not the air, but the actual pressure, right? Plus, we're also getting that slow exhalation of the diaphragm. Instead of going like this, because all of this is in the way, we have this slow exhalation. Again, the exercise is forcing you to do it right. The exercise is not building these things. It's not really building muscle memory either. It's something that you need to apply when you actually sing, and that will fire the muscle memory when you sing real songs, right? So what we want to focus on is that back pressure feeling. Basically, the air can't escape. Yes, that comes from the vocal folds. Yes, that comes from the back of the tongue being raised. That's why the back of your tongue needs to be raised. This comes from, in your front vowels in particular, the tongue being raised up in a wave in the mouth as well. That's a form of compression. These vowels that are less open in the front, you're going to get that back pressure in there. Practicing with straw phonation is exactly the same thing. The air can't escape quick enough. You get that back pressure. You get the support feeling. But then you go and sing songs and you don't actually apply those things and it doesn't make you sing any better. Lip trills are exactly the same, right? So we've got our back pressure. We've got our support. We've also got a front vowel. Now, not every vowel you sing is a front vowel. I explained that in the last video. There was a really important point that I feel like I missed in that video that I wanted to share with you guys. But, live videos, what can I do other than go back and do like extra additional videos, right? So, when you're practicing all of these sounds, this is a front vowel. It's not really a vowel, but you'll notice if you've ever tried to go from a lip trill, depending on how you're doing it, you can actually do one that's more of a back sound, right? Say you're doing a trill like, if you try and go to an R vowel, there's something strained in the sound that doesn't go there, right? If you go to more of an sound, this is actually the sound you're making behind the lip trill in most cases, unless you're slamming your tongue down and trying to create tons of space and all of that kind of stuff, right? So we've got our back pressure, we've got our support, we've got the ping within the vowel. It doesn't have to be a front vowel, but in this case it is, right? We've got our connection between head and chest voice, and most importantly, we've got frustration. We've got frustration, which you can call cry if you really want, but the second I say cry, your mind just goes blank. You've watched 20 other videos where someone's telling you about cry to extend chest voice or whatever it is, right? And the second I say cry, your mind just goes blank, fires those neural connections of all the shit you think you've learned previously, and you're no longer listening to me, right? So let's call it something else. It's a frustrated sound. Again, it's frustrated, man. Ooh, 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 ooh. This kind of thing, right? And this is using your CT muscle as your pitching mechanism. We're not really using cry to extend chest voice in the way that you probably think. It comes in way earlier than you're probably thinking as well. We're really using this as our pitching mechanism. We're stretching the vocal folds to pitch. It's not about extending, it's about stretching the vocal folds to pitch. You'll notice the difference when if you're doing that lip trill and you go to R, I'm using that frustrated, stretchy cry, and then the second I go to the R vowel, because of the vowel, I'm using contraction of the vocal folds and pressure to try and make me hit that pitch, and it's not really possible in my voice, right? Whereas if I really focus on that stretchy sound, we're really using that as our pitching mechanism, right? Now, the most important thing about this exercise in particular is that it separates you from your idea of singing. And this was the point that I wanted to make in the last video that I made. Got away from me. When you're doing a lip trill, this is not something that you can probably associate Chris Cornell doing, right? When you're doing a puffy cheek exercise, you're not thinking of Man in the Box. You're not thinking of Lane Staley. You're not thinking of Danzig. You're not thinking of Ian Astbury or whoever your favorite singer is, right? Joe Cocker, Paul Rogers, Glenn Hughes. I just name my favorite singers if you like. You're not really associating that sound with your favorite singer, so you don't try and contort your voice into this little box that you think these people are singing through, right? Quite often people are making a very different sound to the one that you are being presented with or that you perceive that they are making. And basically letting your voice, letting the resonance, letting the vowel, letting the setup do the work for you without you trying to squeeze your voice out and with all of your opinions and views on singing. This is why a lot of these exercises work. When you go to a song, they do not work. So how do we actually apply this in a song? I realized jumping from a puffy cheek sound straight into a skid row vocal line or a Judas Priest line is pretty unfair. And that might lose you in terms of like where that connection is between the two. So if we start with something which is a little more middle ground and actually leads up to that range, I'm going to show you how all of this is applied in a real vocal line, right? How to actually use these sounds. Whether it's the puffy cheek exercise I'm giving you, whether it's lip trills, whether it's straw phonation, if you identify each one of these things, this is what you need to apply in your singing, right? So if I'm singing a vocal line, right? The Reverend, it turned to me without a tear in his eyes. There's nothing new for him to see. I didn't ask him why. I will remember the love our souls had sworn to make. Now I watch the pouring rain. No, my mind can't see now is your... Let's talk about that for a second, right? Reverend. Again, I'm using my CT muscle as my pitching mechanism. I'm not going, Reverend, yeah! Really using this pressure and the thickness of the folds, the vocalis muscle, the thyroarytenoid fibers within the vocal folds, not using them to get my pitch, right? And Phil Anselmo's voice is maybe even lower than mine, right? This is what he's doing in this range, right? Reverend, it turned to me without a tear in his eyes. There's nothing new for him to see. I didn't ask him why. It's sad, it's frustrated. Why can't I do this? This kind of sound is going to stretch your vocal folds. There's a million different ways to kind of find that and do that. That's just my example here. Number two, I've got my back pressure, I've got my support, and yeah, I've got those front vowels, right? Reverend, he turned to me without a tear in his eyes. Very few of those sounds are actually back vowels in that sense. Again, you can sing whatever vowels you want, depends on the words you're writing. But again, in this case, I'm literally singing the same vowel, the same vowel setup as the puffy cheek exercise. I bet you've never made that connection before, right? That same front sound where we've got our tongue rolled up and that second formant is small within the mouth. That's literally what you've been practicing. That's what Phil Anselmo is singing here, right? We've got our support, we've got our back pressure, we've even got our front vowel, and we've got our connection between chest and head voice. I'm not trying to sing with a chesty mix to prove some point. I don't really understand what the point is that everyone goes on about with this. This is not what your favorite singers are doing. Phil Anselmo has or had a big voice, and this is not what he's doing. He's not singing with the chesty mix at all. He's using a lot of cry within the sound. I can hear that there's tons of kind of Judas Priest in this. There's probably tons of other like classic kind of 80s heavy metal within his singing that you're not associating because it's Pantera, right? So if we're going up in our range, right, what do we do differently, right? Well, I guess you took my youth and gave it all away. Like the birth of a newfound joy, this love would end in a rage. And when she died, I couldn't cry and spared myself some pain. You left me incomplete, all alone as the memories now unfold. Right? You can hear that frustration. Fall. This is what he's doing. Go and listen to the record. He brings it in even earlier than I do. He's using this stretch and this cry as his pitching mechanism, which is why it's so easy for him to be you know, or whatever the high section is, right? Right, as we're going up to the high stuff, right? He's really using that pitching mechanism, right? Right, as we're going up to that high range, right? It's not a god-awful push to get up there. You stretch your vocal folds to that pitch and you will get to that range, right? That's how all high-range singing works. And it's happening a lot lower than what you probably realize. Plus, we're just using all these same elements that are coming from this really simple puffy cheek exercise. Woo! Yeah! Yeah! This kind of range singing, right? So the Skid Row example I gave in the last last video, right? We're just using our outward support. I'm not going, trying to make this happen, right? Reverend, it turned to me without a tear in his eyes. There's nothing new for him to see. I didn't ask him why. I will remember the love our souls had sworn to make. Now I watch the falling rain. This kind of thing, right? All my mind can see now is your, well, same thing, outwards. Well, he's got more grit in the sound, right? Well, I guess you took my youth and gave it all away. Like the birth of a newfound joy. This love would end in a rage. This kind of thing, right? Memories now unfold, right? And now you're seeing how we make that connection between our vocal exercise and our actual singing and whatever it is that you want to sing. Maybe you want to sing pop or whatever it is. I'm definitely a rock guy. You can probably tell, right? So we're using our outward support, our back pressure. That means different things on different vowels, right? That's a can of worms in and of itself. Your front vowel is really natural. The tongue's in the way. Teeth are in the way. Lips are in the way, right? You get that pressure. It doesn't happen the same way on an R vowel. You got your ping within the vowel. You got your connection within head and chest voice. You're using the CT muscle as your pitching mechanism. Plus also, I'm just letting all of that do the work for me. I'm not thinking about Phil Anselmo's voice at all. I'm really not. I'm not even thinking of the song. I'm really just singing for the song and singing the vocal line and letting my voice do all of the work. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and we're going to talk soon.